Hey y'all, it's Ashley at Bookishrealm. As you can see from the title of this video, this is interesting. This is just it's an interesting topic, and I'm gonna give a shout out here to Erica at the Broken Spine because she actually is, she doesn't know because I haven't told her, but she's the reason behind why I decided to sit down and even film this video. So I knew that the Times 100 most influential people had come out, but I hadn't had a chance to look. I've just been extremely busy. I hadn't had a chance to look at it, and I didn't know who was on it. And Erica had shared on her Instagram stories that Colleen Hoover had made it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you some kind of like, I guess, house rules here, or some, you know, heads up, because this is what I don't want to happen in the comments. One, this is not a discussion about me saying whether Colleen Hoover should or should not be on the Times 100 most influential list, because it's most influential people. And for a woman that has outsold the number of copies of Bible sold in a year, she's gonna be on this list, regardless of how anyone may feel about her writing, the way that she, you know, produces her books, whatever the case may be, whether you like her, whether you don't like her, whether you love her, whether you hate her, the influence is there. It's the same way that Donald Trump ended up on there. You like him, you love him, you hate him, you know, you don't like him. Influence is a completely separate thing than condoning what someone is or isn't doing. So out of curiosity, I just went and read the write-up, because if you didn't know, with the Times list, they do write-ups, and that's what my thing here is focused on. This is also not a discussion telling you you should or should not read Colleen Hoover, okay? Read what you want to read. If you love Colleen Hoover, this is not a personal attack on you, okay? I'm not here to attack you at all. Like, it is what it is at this point. I do not care to read anything by Colleen Hoover, but that is my personal decision. It's just not me. I know people who read Colleen Hoover, and that's what they want to read. It is what it is. This is also a space where I like to have open discussions, but I would hope that we would just keep it classy. Like, you know, it's been a couple of comments here and there lately that I've just been kind of like, you know, if you've been on my channel, you know the deal. Like, you know, I welcome discussion, but, you know, getting down and dirty and just kind of negative is just, I don't like that energy in my space, so I don't welcome, nor do I invite it. There are probably going to be a couple of things that I'm going to say that people are not going to agree with, and that's perfectly fine. This is just my opinion. Solely my opinion. I'm not stating that it's fact. It's my opinion. The reason why I decided to do this discussion is because when I went and I read the write-up, which was written by Jenna Bush Hager, please forgive me. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. I just think of her as Jenna Bush, but clearly, you know. Anyway, I read the write-up, and it was interesting because Jenna had also stated, which I'm not going to read the write-up, but Jenna had also stated, like, hey, whether you like her or you don't, at the end of the day, this woman is influential. Now, what I did find interesting, and I am going to read this because I do want to get this word for word. Jenna says, and thanks to her rise on Book Talk, she has motivated an entire generation of readers back to bookstores and libraries. I read that sentence 10, maybe 15 times, because that is a load of a statement to make in terms of one person, because Jenna doesn't really clarify what generation she's talking about. Clearly Gen Z is included in that, but there's also possibility that you have some millennials who are included in that, and there's no denying this is a woman who's had, I think, 10 of her books on the New York Times bestselling. So I don't know. She's had a lot of her books on the concurrently on the New York Times bestselling list. Like, that's wild. From a librarian perspective, the amount of holes that people put to read the physical copy and ebook or e-audio copy of her books is astronomical. People love it. There have been displays where people have put, like, if you like Colleen Hoover, displays are gone. Completely wiped clean, because she's just had that level of influence. But I think for me, it's the almost the absolute in that statement. And I also could be reading that statement in a way that was not intended by Jenna. But to say, I'm going to go back to it, but to say that she's motivated an entire generation, entire for me was a key word there. I can't give Colleen Hoover that credit because the people who are pushing Colleen Hoover, the people who are reading Colleen Hoover don't always look like me. And keyword, I didn't say they don't ever look like me. I said they don't always look like me and others. And so while this is not a discussion about BookTok versus BookTube, I think we've pretty much dragged that one through the mud, myself included. I put myself on that list. I think we've kind of dragged it through the mud. I think we've all said what we've needed to say on that. She's had great influence, but I can't give her an entire generation. It's not like it's been this mass movement for all of us in awe of Colleen Hoover. I take issue with the fact that I have these conflicting feelings. It's amazing. It's almost like I take issue with myself because on the one hand, the librarian part of me is like, yes, y'all done got tricked into reading. Y'all done made reading cool. But then the other part of me is also the youth services aspect. By the time this goes up, I would have hit my 7-year anniversary of working as a librarian. And it's tough not to remember the things that you learn when you go through school or the things that you learn over your career, especially when it comes to youth. And it is a lot of youth who are reading her books. It's not just people my age or people in their 20s. I had a 14-year-old arguing with someone on a short that I did about not wanting to read Colleen Hoover. And, you know, just because I said I just have no interest, and you have people like going to, you know, war over this woman. And so it's not just older people, it is younger teenagers as well who are reading her books. And this is not about me policing with kids read. I don't act in local parentis at my job. I'm not finna do it now. What is read in your household is what is read in your household. That has nothing to do with me, and it's none of my business. But it broadens the scope of how influential she has been. And so as someone who has continuously worked in youth services, that's basically all my career has been, I'm like, this is what's popular, this is what's getting pushed on social media, this is what kids are seeing. And I feel like as a librarian, I'm starting to feel that conflicting piece of, I've always been taught, you know, Dr. Bishop, windows, mirrors, sliding glass doors, windows, mirrors, sliding glass doors. That sense of empathy is built through windows, mirrors, sliding glass doors. And so with this hitting so many younger age groups, then that part of me is kind of like, it's a little worried because the essence of those diverse voices are kind of like getting lost. And then when you throw in how much book banning and challenging is going on in terms of BIPOC and queer voices, it just makes this whole recipe for me personally where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is what they have access to, this is what they're seeing via social media, and this is what they're reading. And it's like, okay, I'm glad they're reading, but then there's this huge but in there. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I just like to read for pleasure. I like to read to escape. I don't need to learn a lesson every time that I read. I don't want to be knee deep in this and that. And listen, that is your place to feel that way. I can't tell you how to feel. I can't. I cannot do that. I think for me, it's just the training that I've had that makes sometimes that piece of it, they don't agree all the time. They're not in accordance all the time. And I understand reading for escapism, although from what I've heard, Colleen Hoover's books are not really escapism because there's a lot of like content warnings that come with her books. And I don't know how they're handled. I really haven't done any deep diving or research because honestly, I just don't care enough. I didn't care when Colleen Hoover was writing back in the day, like 2014. I don't care 10 years later. I've read I thought I had read nothing by Colleen Hoover, but apparently I read Never Never way back in the day, like 2014, 2015, when she originally had wrote it with Taryn Fisher. But I had no interest after that. Like there was no, so nothing has changed. I have no interest. Now, I think I feel like Jenna's comment there, for me personally, is not really indicative of how I perceive Colleen Hoover. So it's not taking away her level of influence, but crediting her with encouraging an entire generation of people to go back to libraries and bookstores takes credit away from others that have contributed. I think it takes away from librarians who put in the work and the effort through outreach, through social media, through programming all the time to inspire people to go back to, reading. I think that it could have been written in a way where Colleen Hoover has created an influx in people who are going to libraries and are going to bookstores, but to give her credit for inspiring an entire generation is not true, because she doesn't connect with entire generations. She doesn't connect with, I don't want to say she don't connect with a lot of people. She connects with a hell of a lot of people, but she connects with certain people, okay? Like, and I know people are going to get pissed about it because they're like, oh, Ashley, you're always talking about race. You always want to bring race up. Well, honey, when you're black, woman, queer, and disabled, listen, baby, like, there's just, it informs your life, okay? I'm not saying that I experience, like, head-on, straight, direct racism from people every single day. That's not realistic. But systemic racism is every day. And so, while I may not be consciously aware all the time of how it's impacting me, it does impact my life to a certain degree, and I will not deny that, nor will I give up that stance for anyone. I don't really care who you are. But I can tell you, as a black woman, I'm not looking to Colleen Hoover for inspiration, motivation to read. I'm just really not. I think that you leave out the stories of people who have been looking their whole life to find themselves in stories. And sometimes that's the motivation for these kids, for adults, for teenagers to begin reading. It's just, I think for me, I just can't get over like the absolute energy, the kind of like authoritative energy that she attributes or she gives to Colleen Hoover. It takes away from the fact that social media itself is what has drive people back to reading. Book Talk is, and TikTok in general, is a way to cater to short form content for generations now that don't have the attention span nor the time to sit down and watch a video like this long form content. It's a perfect setting. When you throw books into the mix and then you have people picking up on it, people getting recommendations, you have, bookstores and libraries and these major news outlets covering Book Talk, you also have to give social media its credit. It's just not her alone. There are other authors who are doing this. There are other means and avenues. I just feel like it was kind of a slap in the face a little bit. I don't know why that comment just like grated my nerves. And like I said, I read that comment over and over, that statement within her write-up over and over again. And I just can't help but to feel like that's a slap in the face to people who are actively doing the work on the ground, doing the footwork every single day, who are reaching communities that don't have access to social media in the way that people think. People think that the internet is everywhere, and that always amazes me that people don't realize that there are internet deserts. where people literally do not have internet. I don't know how many people realize how much libraries have changed in order to provide communities with hotspots because they don't have access to internet at home. So for me, in my mind, to think like she's motivated an entire generation, I'm like, I feel like that could have been stated differently. Like, she's motivated more people to visit their libraries, motivated more people to go to the bookstores, because that's not a lie. But to say that key word there for me is entire, because it leaves out so many key voices. It leaves out so many key voices in all of this. And it fails to recognize that so many stories are getting left out, or so many people are fighting to make sure, I'll phrase it that way. So many people are fighting to make sure that marginalized voices don't get lost under the foothold that is Colleen Hoover. I had somebody come to me at work, oh, have you read Colleen Hoover? Absolutely not. Girl, do I look like I'm the one to even read it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But you'd be surprised how much her being on the New York Times bestseller list, how much that informs how and what people read and what they're coming in the library to get. And I'm going to keep going back to it, because for me it's super important how much it's how much it's impacting youth in a way that is both beneficial and also negative. Like I said, I can't help but to say, like, yes, these teenagers are reading. But then I keep going back to that part that, like, what other experiences are you seeing? People are like, oh, it's not important. It is. And studies have shown that it's important, because it's that empathy. It's the empathy that worries me. And in the world that we live in right now, the culture war, where stories by queer and BIPOC people are getting pulled off the shelf left, right, and center, defunding libraries, closing libraries. And I'm thinking, like, this is what they have to go to. And, you know, that might be kind of apocalyptic me to start thinking in that way. But I can't help but I think it's just a part of me that will always feel kind of worried. So it's, like I said, this is not to say that Colleen Hoover isn't influential, because I would be lying on camera if I said she's not influential. I just think that that line, y'all, I just cannot get back. I cannot get over the fact that she said she has motivated an entire generation of readers back to bookstores and libraries. It's not an entire generation. Don't cut down what other people are doing, what other people have done, the trailblazers who have existed before social media blew her up. Because it's not like Colleen Hoover started writing yesterday. She's been writing for years. Social media made her go viral. And that's what this is. That's what this is. And what saddens me a lot, though, is that, especially on the youth side, from a collection perspective, is that a lot of these books that I have to go back and reorder because the amount of people requesting it has gotten so high, is that they're not often through a diverse lens. Those are the books that are they're not going viral. And it says a lot. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because that's the truth. I hope that wasn't too confusing. I hope that if you love and you read Colleen Hoover, you don't feel personally attacked for reading her. Because, like I said before, you read what you read, you enjoy what you enjoy. But I can't agree with that statement. I cannot, in good faith and good conscience, agree with that statement. And so, yes, that's it. as always, let me know your thoughts and your feelings and opinions down in the comment box below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're looking to support this channel or follow me on social media, all the links will be down in the description box below. And I will be back with another video soon.